Hey guys, welcome to another episode of The Completionist. So, last video of the time that I'm going to be home this time around, guys. And in approximately an hour and a half, I will be taking my flight back out to Alberta to work during the winter, spring, and summer seasons. So you probably won't see a video from me after this video for about 7 months. So, what I wanted to do for this video, guys, is I wanted to do another episode of a completionist point of view. So I decided to rock the shades for this episode, since it's been a while since I actually wore them. But the topic that I want to talk to you today is something that I've seen on YouTube, especially over the last couple of years, and especially it's more prevalent this year than anything else. And the issue that I'm going to talk to you about is, why do gamers get angry at the pettiest of things? Because if it's one thing that I'm seeing from a lot of gamers these days, is that, you know, you're having a lot of people bitch and complain about the video game industry in itself, specific video game companies, and even individual video games on their own. But it's not only that as well, it's just you're seeing a lot of gamers just get angry at the pettiest of things, that they can't handle when their hobby gets attacked, even if it's in a jokingly manner. It's that if somebody, you know, attacks their hobby, they just got to go right for the jugular. It's just that, you know, it's almost as if, you know, we can't accept criticism anymore. You know, anytime somebody like does the slightest little jab at our hobby, you know, everybody just has to collectively lose their shit. And it's just something that, like, I'm seeing more and more gamers do. And I'm looking at the issues that they're getting angry about, and I'm just saying to myself, like, guys, why are you getting angry over things that, you know, we literally have no control over, you know, minus the odd exception, of course. Because, you know, for the most part, you know, we're all gamers, but, you know, to the video game industry in itself, and especially the video game companies, to these people, we're simply consumers. They don't really care about making us happy. Well, kind of making us happy to an extent, but they're more concerned with trying to get as much money out of our pockets as humanly possible. And it still bewilders me that there are so many people that still think that there are a lot of companies out there, especially, you know, AAA gaming companies, that still want to act in a gamer's best interest. And I think that's a delusional attitude to have, because unfortunately for a lot of companies, a lot of video game companies are fucking greedy, and they're always going to act in their best interests over a gamer's best interests any day of the week. And it just irritates me how a concept as simple as that so many people can totally ignore whatsoever. You know, if it's something that I've seen, you know, especially over the last few gaming generations, is that I notice that the amount of gamer entitlement that a lot of gamers have is unrealistically just going up and up and up and up, to the point that they set so many unrealistic expectations upon the industry in itself, that it doesn't really matter what the industry does, or what a video game company does, or even what a specific video game does. Nothing will ever be good enough to these people. You know, I'm seeing more and more people, especially when it comes to playing individual games, that they're so fixated on finding flaws that that's all they want to talk about, that they just want to focus on the flaws of said game, and they don't want to look at the positives or focus on the positives. It's always the negatives. It's always, we're going to focus on what's wrong with this game, and why so many aspects of this game is bad before anything positive about the game is said. And I think that is such an ass-backwards way of thinking. Because one thing I've always talked about when it comes to this series is subjectivity. Because especially in the realm of video games, no video game will ever be 100% perfect. Because even to each and every individual person, your favorite game of all time will not be appealing to everybody. It may be appealing to a lot of people, or it may be appealing to a very few select people. But that's the point of taste. Taste is subjective. What one person likes is that you can't expect everyone else to like what you like. And it bothers me how many gamers are so delusional when they get so upset that someone doesn't like what they like. You know, it's, you know, a lot of the complaints, you know, I just don't understand. I don't understand why we allow ourselves to get so worked up over things that we literally have no control over. And I don't know why we allow ourselves to think like that and to act like that. I don't expect any game that I play to be a 100% perfect experience, because when it comes to video games, I don't think any game is perfect. I think every game has its advantages and has its disadvantages. It has its positives and it has its negatives. But if we go into it with the wrong attitude, then we're not going to enjoy the games that are presented to us, because we're always going to be so fixated on the negatives that it's so hard for us to even enjoy any positives in the game, if there are any to begin with. You know, I see so many people on YouTube, and one of my biggest pet peeves is that, you know, you see so many people that think that they know how to run a video game company, or they know how to make a great game, or how a series should go back to its roots in order to make it enjoyable. But the problem is that I find when people make arguments like that, is that if you know how to fix the video game industry, if you know how to make the video game industry better, then why in the fuck are you not working in the video game industry, you fucking knob? Oh, I know why. It requires effort. And it requires starting from the bottom and working your way up. But it's far more easier to just basically get online and to make a video about saying what needs to be done in the video game industry than simply trying to do something about it yourself. And, you know, it just bothers me, you know, when people say that, because like I said, everybody thinks that they can fix the video game industry. My simple attitude towards it is that, you know, like I said before, I don't expect every game to be a perfect experience. But I don't set unrealistic expectations on the games that I want to play, because I think it's important to understand that you cannot make a judgment on something unless you actually play it. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen gamers make opinions about games that they have no interest in playing, no interest in trying it, and will specifically say as much shit about that game without even giving the game the time of day. You know, with regards to me, one thing you need to understand about me is, like, I play the anime style games. That's what I love. I generally don't like first-person shooters. You know, I think the last first-person shooter I played, like, religiously was GoldenEye. They're not necessarily my kind of gaming genre. But I'm not going to shit on licenses, you know, such as Call of Duty and Halo and Battlefield and things like that, and say that these games are bad games, because I can't say that they're bad games, because I haven't played them. I don't really have any interest to play them, but I'm not going to shove my nose up and and think that my opinion has more merit than anything else. It's just like, I think a lot of us have gotten to the point that we're overanalyzing, you know, the industry, we're overanalyzing the hobby to a point where it doesn't become enjoyable anymore. And it's like I said before, we're so fixated on finding flaws, we're so fixated on finding something wrong instead of focusing on the positives, you know, on what makes this good. Because, you know, like I said before, I hate to break it to people, but every game is not going to be perfect. A game has the potential to be perfect to you as an individual person, but not to everybody as a whole. And it just breaks my heart how such a simple point can be missed by so many people. You know, and it goes back to the whole thing that a lot of gamers can't handle, you know, their hobby being criticized in any way, shape, or form. And in a way, I can relate, because even though this is a really touchy subject for a lot of people, but the whole Gamergate fiasco, I've been pro Gamergate ever since this entire situation even happened to begin with. And I've always stayed on that side of the argument. You know, listen, we all know that gaming journalism is corrupt, that, you know, a lot of these people don't act in the best interests of the individual gamer or as the industry as a whole. They basically want to do their job to benefit themselves, or, you know, benefit the companies that, you know, will give them perks and, you know, things along those lines. And, you know, we all know gaming journalism is one big fucking joke. Or at least the majority of us do. That's the reason why we don't really trust review scores, because how many times have we seen shitty reviews, you know, for games that we actually enjoy? I'm sure that there's several games that could fit that criteria whatsoever. But, you know, one of the perks of being a Gamergate supporter is that thankfully my presence on social media is very small. So I was never on Twitter, I was never on like Tumblr or, you know, any of these other messaging boards, or, you know, even gaming forums, you know, NeoGAF and stuff like that. And I just basically sat on the sidelines and just watched the entire movement, and, you know, and all the gaming journalism sites, you know, literally destroy themselves all in one fell swoop. Because if it is one thing I can side on with regards to gamers talking about the industry, or when something controversial happens in the industry, is censorship. I have a huge issue with censorship, because I think society has gotten to a point that, you know, we don't need anybody telling us, you know, what is controversial and what is not controversial. You know, we're all adults, we're all rational human beings. But to see, you know, some of the things being edited out in video games, you know, it is disappointing. But, you know, I guess in a way that's just how society is, and there's not really much we can do about it. It's just, it's unfortunate, but unfortunately, it's just the nature of the beast. But, you know, getting back into the whole Gamergate thing, you know, one of the reasons why I got interested in it is unfortunately, when people started getting attacked, and when people started getting death threats and, you know, things along those lines, which I'm totally against. I think no matter how much you hate a person's opinion, you know, nobody deserves death threats or harassment of any way, shape, or form. But I expect people, regardless of what side of the argument you're on, is that you should always allow yourself to debate another person on the other side of the argument. And unfortunately, I've seen everyone on the pro side ready to debate and be respectful about it, but nobody on the anti-Gamergate side wants to talk about it or debate it or anything along those lines. But one of the reasons why I got interested in the entire thing is that, you know, when people started making claims that video games make men sexist, I had a huge problem with that. Because I don't think they do. Much in the same way that, you know, watching horror movies aren't going to turn people into killers. Or, you know, or kids watching violent 80s action movies, which I'm sure every guy in their 30s right now has probably watched a Sylvester Stallone movie or an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. And, you know, we all didn't turn out to be violent killers or, you know, anything along those lines. And for me, as a husband who loves and respects his wife, and I know plenty of gamers who are husbands, who are also fathers to daughters, that are some of the nicest, most respectful people around. So the people that believe that video games make men sexist, you know, can literally go fuck themselves for all I care. Because I got no time for that asinine way of thinking. It's, you know, I just don't understand, you know, why people even come up with like some of this bullshit. And, but like going back to the censorship thing, you know, there are like some aspects of censorship that, you know, that don't really need to happen. You know, like I said, you know, I talked about, you know, kids playing first-person shooters and, you know, playing M-rated games, and like I don't think, you know, a kid, you know, 8 or 10 years old, you know, has any business, you know, playing a game, you know, like Grand Theft Auto 5, or, you know, anything along those lines. But there are some issues of censorship that, you know, people that I've seen gamers talk about, that I just don't understand why this is even a fucking issue to begin with. Because sometimes, you know, issues of censorship can be totally justifiable. But, and I guess, like, the biggest one that I've heard of recently is the fact that, you know, in Xenoblade Chronicles X, you know, I guess they edited one of the costumes for one of the youngest characters in the game. I think she's like 13 years old, and I guess she was wearing a skimpy suit and anything along those lines. And, you know, and I've seen like so many gamers bitch about it, and like I'm just thinking to myself, like, okay, if you're a 13, 14, 15-year-old kid and you want to see, you know, a little avatar, 13-year-old avatar in, you know, a skimpy suit or, you know, anything along those lines, you know, totally understandable. You know, your hormones are going crazy, you know, you got to keep them in check and la-di-fucking-da. But if you're like a 25, 30, 35, 40-year-old and you're bitching about not seeing a 13-year-old girl in a scantily clad outfit, that comes off as a little creepy. I have to be completely honest. So, but, you know, at the end of the day, it's a whole cultural thing. You know, obviously there's a lot of, like, kinky sexual things, especially, you know, in Japan and Korea and places like that. And I guess in North America, you know, people are a little more reserved like that. But, you know, at the end, different games, different cultures, what could be right for one region of the world can probably not be right for another region. So, you know, that's just my thoughts, you know, when it comes to censorship. But, you know, briefly, you know, I had talked about, you know, where gamers can't even handle, you know, the slightest bit of criticism, and, you know, I've seen 2 cases of that, especially over the last several months. I guess, you know, the big occasion that comes to mind is, you know, when Jimmy Kimmel, you know, was insulting Let's Players. And everybody collectively lost their shit. And I'll be completely honest, guys, like, I don't watch Let's Plays. And I don't watch a lot of live streams, I really don't. You know, I do have friends on YouTube that do live streams, and, you know, sometimes I'll drop in for 5 to 10 minutes just to watch them play their game, or, you know, have a chat with them, but in all honesty, I don't watch Awesome Games Done Quick, I don't watch Evo, I don't watch anything along those lines, even though I can respect and I can admire the amount of skill that professional gamers have, or the ability, you know, to beat games really quick. But, you know, I've never been a fan of Let's Play channels, but, you know, I'm not gonna actively insult these people for it. You know, it's just not my thing. So I just simply move on. But, you know, when Jimmy Kimmel was making fun of Let's Players, like everybody lost their shit. And I'm just saying that, like, guys, are you really that fucking sensitive that you can't handle somebody just slightly poking fun, you know, at a hobby you love? You know, because of the whole, like, fucking Gamergate fiasco, you know, we, like, a lot of gamers are trying so hard to show that we're not a bunch of fucking fanboy crybabies, that, you know, we have to collectively lose our shit every time somebody tries to challenge our hobby. But then, you know, when a comedian, a late-night talk show host, ends up dissing on Let's Players, and then everybody says, oh, we're just gonna go to the video and dislike that video and say the most horrible of things to a comedian, you're taking it way too fucking seriously. In all honesty, you just could have ignored it and moved on with your life. Because it's like I said before, you know, I'm not necessarily fond of Let's Players because, you know, like, I'm not going to sit there for 2 or 3 hours and watch somebody play a video game, because do you know what I would like to be doing in those 2 to 3 hours? Playing my own fucking video game. And I don't need a fucking audience to enjoy it. You know, just recently, I think in the last month, you know, you had a guy that was, like, insulting gamers. And I had a gut feeling that this guy was a troll. But then I started watching YouTubers make, like, video responses to this guy and, like, trying to challenge his points. And then one of my really good friends did some research on this guy, and this guy's a fucking comedian. He's a professional troll, and everybody fucking fell for it. And I'm just saying, like, guys, are you really that sensitive? Like, don't you have a tough skin? Like, can't you, like, enjoy your hobbies without feeling the need to defend it, even when somebody is attacking it? Because, like, I just don't understand why we get angry at so many petty things in the video game industry. It's just, I just want to play fucking games, and I really don't fucking care what anybody has to say about it. But, you know, we're living in a time right now in which the hobby is being challenged like never has it been before. And I get it in a way that, you know, you want to defend it. You don't want a bunch of people who have probably never played video games their entire life to tell you how you should dictate your hobby. But, you know, having a knee-jerk reaction and acting in anger is not the way to go about it. You know, you want to demonstrate, you know, the good things in this hobby, then you have to be rational. You have to be educational. You have to challenge these points with facts. Not by insulting them, not by throwing them petty names, not by making them feel like shit, by actually taking their points and challenging every last bit of it. Because, you know, because at the end of the day, you know, despite how violent video games are, you know, I've seen studies, you know, of where, you know, violence in real life, you know, is going down, even though, you know, the violence in video games is, you know, getting more and more graphic, and things along those lines. And I just think, you know, a lot of this petty anger isn't really going to help this industry, because unfortunately there are too many people that are acting like a petulant child, like your favorite toy has been taken away from you, and you can't take it. You know, at least try to be rational about it. At least, you know, try to be a fucking adult about it. You know, and the final point that, you know, I want to make is, you know, especially when people have problems with specific video game companies and specific games in general. And I'll just give a few examples. Like, you know, let's look at one of the things gamers have bitched about lately, which was Star Wars Battlefront. You know, I recall, you know, Electronic Arts being voted as the worst company in the world, I think 2 years in a row. That they're probably some of the greediest motherfuckers on the face of the planet, but in all honesty, it seems like greed and a video game company, especially the big video game companies, go hand in hand. Why is anybody really fucking surprised by this? Why is anyone really surprised about the whole fucking season pass fiasco and stuff like that, especially when it comes from EA of all people? None of this should have been a fucking surprise to anybody, but you know, when it happened and all the news came out, everybody collectively lost their shit. And you know, EA has always been a greedy fucking company. This should be no surprise to anybody. You know, and unfortunately, you know, we've seen, you know, Capcom shit on its fans and things along those lines, and you know, we've seen Konami do the same, and unfortunately, you know, what Konami has been doing to Kojima, but yet everybody bitching about it. And I keep telling people, listen, if you want to hurt a video game company, you know, you just don't buy their shit, because really most video game companies only care about money. You stop the flow of fucking money, then they're going to change their tune pretty damn quick. And you know, I heard a ton of people say, you know, I'm not going to buy Metal Gear Solid 5, you know, fuck Konami, you know, they don't care about gamers anymore. And I think I read a statistic, I think like Metal Gear Solid 5 like sold 16 million copies. So yeah, that fucking movement went really far. Because if you're going to hurt a fucking company, they don't care about how you feel or what you say, because the only thing they care about is literally getting the money out of your pockets. So all this bitching and whining and complaining ain't gonna do a goddamn thing, unless you stop giving money to this company whatsoever. And that's what it comes down to. But you know, unfortunately, especially in the video game industry nowadays, it's you know, we've been seeing a lot of greed in this industry, and unfortunately, for the most part, you know, there's not really much we can do about it. But you know, sometimes, you know, it can work. Sometimes, if a lot of gamers get together, you know, we can promote positive change in the industry. You know, you look at, you know, Project Rainfall, and you know, getting those 3 RPGs are released out west, you know, for Nintendo. But you know, if you want to make this industry for the better, then you have to focus on the positivity. You can't always focus on the negative, because you know, if you focus on the negative all the time, you're never going to be satisfied. That's the problem. So the thing is that I'm not saying that gamers should simply accept what's given to them, because unfortunately we're seeing a lot of shitty things, you know, in the video game industry nowadays. But I think we have to go about it in the right way, and just bitching and whining and complaining isn't the way to do it. You want to promote positive change in this industry, then you want to focus on the companies that make this industry better. And just don't give the fucking time of day to the companies that obviously don't care about making this industry for the better. It's as simple as that. But I don't know where we've lost the ability to just ignore, you know, just the petty bullshit, you know, that comes in the industry. And you know, people will start arguments over like stupid shit about which game is better, you know, console versus PC. Console fanboys can go fuck themselves, PC fanboys can go fuck themselves. You know, at the end of the day, who fucking cares? Play what you love. Play what you love and simply focus on the positive. And that's all I can ever really expect out of people. Because in the grand scheme of things, I don't know how to make the industry better. Because I'm simply a gamer. And in the grand scheme of things, I'm a consumer. I'm not a game designer, I'm not a writer, I'm not a programmer, I'm not a coder. I wouldn't even know how to make a video game to begin with. But my attitude has always to try to enjoy things for the simplest reasons. And even if you see something in the industry that pisses you off, do your research at least, so you get both sides of the story instead of like having this fucking knee-jerk reaction and just fly off the handle, you know, every time, you know, you hear something about the video game industry that that you don't like. And by all means, don't ever judge a game until you have the opportunity to play it. Because that's the only true way you can actually formulate an opinion about how good a game can truly be once you allow yourself to play it once and for all. In closing, guys, even though I've done such a shitty job keeping up with the gaming in 2015, you know, I haven't even played one game that got released this year. I think I might have played Transformers Devastation for about 10 to 15 minutes, but I'm waiting for GameFAQs to come up with a fact for that game. So once I can get it completed once and for all. But one of the games that I'm looking forward to coming out in the next couple of years is the Final Fantasy VII Remake. And even though, you know, I prefer my RPGs turn-based, and even though, you know, I've heard of the game not necessarily being episodic, but like being told in separate parts, you know, kind of like the dot hack games, you know, it may slightly disappoint me with the direction that they're taking the game, but I reserve judgment on the game itself until it's out and until I actually get a chance to play it, and never before. So to all the gamers out there that watch this video, just stop getting pissed off, especially over things that are completely irrelevant and petty in the grand scheme of things. I can understand the passion for trying to make this industry better, but getting angry about it and just flying off the handle isn't going to fix things. More than anything, it's just going to make you look like a fool. Because sincerely, you know, I would love to see this industry become a little better, and it's good to see companies, you know, kind of going back to the roots. But then, unfortunately, you just have other companies that end up being greedy SOBs, and by all means, call them out on it. But you want to hurt the companies that don't do a good job of representing this industry in a good way, then you simply don't give them your money anymore. Because in my eyes, that's the only way you can truly hurt them. Anyway, guys, I hope you've enjoyed my commentary on that subject. So, as I said before, guys, this is the last video of The Completionist for a while. I'll be back home in August over the summer holiday, but, you know, I might make a scatter episode of The Completionist, you know, crappy webcam edition. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the last couple of videos I made. I really wanted to try to get a how to complete video out, but unfortunately my wife's computer that's hooked up to the gaming systems downstairs was on the fritz, and I was unable to get I was unable to get any game footage whatsoever. But while I was home, you know, I did manage to get one game completed and retired for good, and that was the Pac-Man Championship Edition for the XBLA. So anyway, guys, that takes care of another episode of The Completionist. So as always, take care, and I wish you nothing but the best. Later.